Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Charleston. Deftones at Madison Square Garden, Eagles at the Sphere, and Foster the People at the Ryman Auditorium. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
"50 years ago, a young woman named Karen Silkwood got into her car alone.
She was reportedly on her way to deliver sensitive documents to a New York Times reporter.
She never made it, and those documents she'd agreed to carry were never found."
Do you think somebody killed her?
There's no question in my mind that someone killed her that night. I think they were trying to stop her in order to get the documents.
A new investigation into the life and death of America's first nuclear whistleblower.
Listen to Radioactive, The Karen Silkwood Mystery from ABC Audio. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Luigi Mangione has been charged with murder in the state of New York and with the federal government. With these turbo charges, I need to ask, what is next for him? This is Charlie Crimebuster, and today we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more on this episode. Yes, it's what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcast.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. Charlie Crimebuster, charliecrimebuster.com, and peacemakernetwork.com are copyrights owned by Charlie Crimebuster. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello, welcome to this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. So happy to have you on the Charlie Crime Train today. This actually will be the last Charlie Crimebuster episode in 2024, because next week we have a brand new year. So I'd like to take just a moment right now to thank you who have been our listeners for this past year. If you're new, we want to thank you for joining us. And we'd like to urge you to reach out with a shout out. You can reach me, charliecrimebuster, at gmail.com. When I say reach out with a shout out, I mean it. You can just shout out and say hi. Hey, you can ask questions. You can even lodge objections if you don't agree with some of the things that we're saying. And of course, we encourage you to make suggestions about some of the cases you would like to see us investigate. That's right, reach out with a shout out, charliecrimebuster at gmail.com. Some of the folks like to be a part of the program in a different way. They like to support the program. We would love to have your support. Just go to peacemakernetwork.com. peacemakernetwork.com. There you can become a badge supporter. You can also read how we support the brave men and women who run toward danger instead of away from danger. Yes, we're talking about the brave folks of the military, and our first responders are always there when we need us. And, of course, law enforcement. Read all about that at peacemakernetwork.com. And if you'd like to get caught up on a lot of episodes, we have dropped a bunch of them. If you're a crime junkie, you're going to love this website. It's simply charliecrimebuster at gmail.com to reach out with a shout out. It's Peacemaker Network to go to support us. And here's the other one, charliecrimebuster.com. There you're going to find a whole host of episodes that you can binge listen to. That's right, charliecrimebuster.com. And I would not be doing you right without letting you know about a brand new channel that we've just launched, our YouTube channel. You can find out all about that, and you can join us as James Buckland and I, we sit down and we actually talk about the episodes that we've just dropped. In other words, this episode today that you're listening to, James Buckland and I, we're going to talk about it. We're going to add some things to it that you did not find in this episode. And we're going to kind of digest it down to where you can easily understand what's going on. That is simply YouTube at charliecrimebuster.com. Hey, don't fret if you didn't write any of that down, because we're going to make it real easy for you. We're going to drop some links in the show notes. All you have to do is just reach out there and click on it. You will be right there. All right, let's get right down to the heart of the matter. I don't know about you. It just seems a little ironic to me that Luigi, he's now posturing himself as this guy who's lashing out against capitalism and greed. But yet, this is the same guy who attended a private school charging $40,000 a pop. Yes, $40,000 a year. That's the same guy that's now lashing out at corporate greed of insurance companies and their CEOs. I'd say he's doing a lot more than lashing out. He is the alleged killer of one of those CEOs, Brian Thompson. And now, guess what? He's paying big bucks, hiring a top-notch lawyer to defend him. Hey, if it wasn't for capitalism, he would not be in the position of being able to hire this type of attorney. So let's talk about that attorney that will be representing Luigi Mangione and what is next for Luigi. You see, Luigi now, he has retained a high-powered New York attorney to represent him as he faces this murder charge in the death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It has been announced that Karen Friedman Agnifilo will represent him in New York. Now, Friedman Agnifilo spent the majority of her career, according to what we're finding out about her, she actually has been in public service in New York City's criminal justice system. But not only has she been there, she's been in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for 20 years. Over 20 years. And she has held some very important roles there. 2014 to 2021, she was, listen, the Chief Assistant District Attorney. Hey, that's number 2. That's the second highest position in the office. And by being in that position, she was responsible for helping to oversee over 500 attorneys. Now, the high-powered firm that she's in right now, her own husband is a part of that, they only have about 4 or 5 attorneys on their website. But she has been responsible for overseeing over 500 attorneys. She's also had a lot of significant roles there in the district attorney's office. She had a very, very high role in actually the prosecution of Harvey Weinstein. She's also been, she's been very busy. She's helped establish a lot of specialized units. Units like the Human Trafficking Unit, the Hate Crimes Unit, Cyber Crimes, Identity Theft Bureau. And listen to this next one. It ought to pique your interest, especially when it comes to this case. She helped develop Manhattan's first mental health court. Yep, first mental health court, focusing on underlying mental health issues in criminal cases. Well, back in 2021, she decided it's time to step out of the public arena. And it's kind of interesting, though. It happened the same time that District Attorney Cyrus Vance, he decided not to seek re-election as District Attorney. Kind of makes me wonder why she didn't maybe go for the top job. But maybe she found something a little different. She then became partner and of counsel to the Agnifilo attorney firm. That was her husband's Mark law firm. Now, even in this, we need to realize that this law firm is a high-powered law firm, has a host of high-profile clients. In fact, Mark, he represents somebody you've heard about called Diddy. Yep, Diddy. He's Diddy's attorney. Helps him with his legal problems. So it is understandable, my friend, that this lady has a lot of experience. In other words, she knows the system. And by the way, we know now she can also not only work as a good defense lawyer, but she also knows the offense. She knows how to come out swinging. Because just this past month, she began to publicly criticize the handling of Luigi's extradition and arraignment. She alleged it's heavily politicalized. Says it's undetermining her client's right to a fair trial. And she said this about the extradition process of Luigi. She said, quote, "The biggest stage perp walk I've ever seen in my career. And she's coming out swinging, accusing New York City officials, including the mayor, Eric Adams, of using this case for their own political purposes. Now, while there does appear to be a whole lot of evidence stacked up against Luigi, do not count him out of the court battle yet. There are several things that we should remember about Karen Freeman. She's got a lot of experience. In fact, one New York prosecutor told CNN she's got as much experience as any human being, especially in the state court. He went on to say she knows every coroner, every judge, every clerk in the courthouse. In other words, this attorney knows the system. She even helped create the system, as we've told you. She knows the ins and outs, especially in state court, and rest assured, she will use this knowledge to her client's advantage. So what is next for Luigi? What will this high-powered defense attorney do in her representation of her client? Will she get him off? Is there a way? Is there actually a way with all this over-mounting evidence? Is there a way that Luigi could walk from these charges? Well, there's actually about 3 of them. And I'm going to tell you all about them in just a moment. Right now, it is time for what we call here at Charlie Crimebuster, it's time to introduce to you Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, my friend, when we come to our Crazy Crook today, got to remember we've just finished Christmas season, and so we've got a little Christmas flavor to this one. You know, after all, it is the season, right? It is the season. Well, this time it's the season for people doing stupid stuff. At least stupider stuff than usual. And this brings us to our Crazy Crook of the Week. A man in Fall River, Massachusetts, who was trying to evade police. Now, we've had all kinds of stories about crazy crooks trying to evade police. We told you about one last week where this one simply put a sign in front of his house that said, "So-and-so does not live here." Well, here's another one. WCVB reported that police were executing a search warrant. 2 of the men in that home ran and escaped to the roof, and of course the cops went up right after them. But my friend, there's a little bit of Santa Claus in this one, because one guy decided to copy Santa Claus, and he decided that he was going to hide inside a chimney. Only problem is, can't make this up. He got in there, and he also got stuck. And because he got stuck, he now needs the help of the very police that he was running from. So my friend, this crazy crook in Fall River, Massachusetts, who decided he was going to outrun the popo by jumping on the roof. But then the popo came after him on the roof, decided that he was going to be smart like Santa Claus, and he was going to go down the chimney and hide. Only problem is, he got stuck, and the popo had to get him out. So my friend, this crazy crook who got stuck in a chimney is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. So what is next for Luigi in his defense? The way I see it, there are 3 ways it could go. First, in light of the overwhelming evidence, well, the murder was caught on camera, right? Fingerprints got him there. The fake ID puts him at the murder scene, and the fingerprints. And a confession. Confession's embedded in his manifesto. Writings found in his possession. Well, in light of all of that, you know what? She just might want to try to get him a good deal. However, how could you do that when there's so much publicity now on this case? I mean, anything that the prosecutor does to give him a good deal might make the prosecutor look weak when it appears he has a very strong case. So in order to get a deal worked out for him, she's going to need some sort of leverage. And my friend, listen, it could be that the prosecution unknowingly already has given her that kind of leverage. Now, you might want to ask, how did that happen? Well, last week I told you that the state was able to bump up the charges from second-degree murder to first-degree murder. Now, they were able to do that by tying these charges to terrorism charges. In other words, making him like the Unabomber. And he, of course, wanted to, in my opinion, well, basically, Unabomber, I believe, was a real hero to him. He wanted to emulate that in his own life. And he wanted, in his own eyes, to become what he called the Unabomber, a political revolutionary, striking fear to prove a political point. But wait a minute now. Since they are going that route to try him as a terrorist, by doing that, it's going to open up to the arguments. It's going to bring to the surface that argument regarding the healthcare industry. This political point that he was trying to make can now become center stage. Instead of really bringing focus to the crime of murder, cold-blooded, premeditated murder, now, and the evidence that supports the crimes, they're now going to have to share that attention to the political and social argument about health care. And we know this is something, of course, that the DA would not like to see become the centerpiece of his trial. So that could be the leverage that she could use. In other words, if they do not want the trial to become a trial about health coverage, then his attorney, she can easily say, well, give us a deal that we can live with. Maybe instead of life without the possibility of parole, perhaps a life sentence that would bring about the possibility of parole. That could be one deal that she looks at. And as far as the federal charges, well, if you don't want this to become a political trial, take death penalty off the table. Again, let him go to maybe life with parole. You see, I believe that these could be, I'm not saying they will be, but these could be the type of deals that she could be working for in regards to a client. And the leverage that she would have would be coming back to this thing of this becoming a political trial instead of a criminal trial. That's one way. Now, I believe there's at least two more ways that she could be strategizing to get her client off of these charges. Now, the first one, well, it could be a far reach, but it has been accomplished before, say in O.J. Simpson's trial. That's what we simply call jury nullification. Now, jury nullification will occur when a jury will reach a verdict of not guilty, despite believing that the defendant is guilty of the charges. And this does happen when jurors will disregard the law, either because maybe they think it's unjust, or its application in a specific case is unfair, or they think that the punishment would be disproportionate. Jurors can indeed make a not guilty vote, even though they may believe that the person is guilty of doing the deed. In other words, my friends, get this, jurors cannot be punished by passing an incorrect verdict. Now, I'm not the only one that's thinking that this could be a way they go. A lot of people are talking about that today. One particular commentator said that the case carries a high risk of jury nullification. And that's due, of course, to the popularity surrounding Luigi, who's charged with these killings. I think it's terrible that a lot of people are coming to support this man, but they are. He's risen to fame. Despite being charged with this crime, he has amassed a large fan base. Some people are even hailing him as a hero for taking action against the American health insurance industry. And on CNN, someone said while he would not necessarily lose sleep over Luigi's level of fame, he would be nervous about the possibility of a jury nullification. He went on to say, quote, "And for sure this is the highest risk of nullification that I have seen in a long time." And he goes on to talk about the fame that he's gained over social media. And yes, it has really amazed me that people are coming even against the people that are working for justice for Brian Thompson. They're coming against those folks. Police and residents of Altoona, Pennsylvania have received threats following the arrest of Luigi. This is the man who's suspected of killing Brian Thompson. The Altoona Police Department Deputy Chief says, "We have received some threats against our officers and building here. We started investigating those threats against citizens in our community. We're taking all those threats seriously, doing all the follow-up we can with those threats." Well, they are taking them seriously, but they're there. He went on to decline to say of the employees at the local McDonald's if they had received any threats, but now I know from other resources that even the employees there at McDonald's have been threatened. They've now gone online and they've left all kinds of untrue reviews for the very restaurant where he was arrested in to somewhat punish the restaurant as his place of arrest. Unreal. And there have been posted, now get this, even pictures of other CEOs who are targeted for hits. In fact, the security industry, in which I'm a part of right now, has received a high increase in calls for protection of their executives. You know what? This has even impacted the market for sales of merchandise. Yep. Many on social media, and I'm chuckling, but it's sad. Many on social media, they've talked to him as a hero, and in his recent court appearance, there's been an unsuspected, now get this, surge in merchandise sales. Even his sweater to his backpack. People are now buying those types of sweaters and those types of backpacks. Retailers, independent creators are scrambling to meet the demand, and it's going viral. It's turning everyday products into highly sought-after collectibles. His $120 sweater would gain viral fame after there were photos of him in that sweater. In fact, somebody has said it's not every day you see a legal proceeding spark a fashion craze. Social buzz, of course, on media, has been behind this demand. There's even been a committee. It's called the December 4th Legal Committee, comprised of, at the beginning, of 15 volunteers around the country, formed after Luigi's arrest, and created a Give, Send, Go fundraiser for his legal expenses. And now I've been told that over $100,000 has been raised for his defense fund. Now, this D4 committee spokesman, Sam Beard, he told Newsweek that the assassination was a political act, meaning that someone who engages in assassination is a political prisoner. And, of course, he has his women followers in court. When he entered the Manhattan courtroom in shackles, his own family was not present, but there were 24 women in the courtroom to support him. Many of them were wearing face masks. They were visibly emotional. And there's been all kinds of images about him online. In fact, many joked on social media that the government has joined a list of quote-unquote hot criminals. That includes, Jeremy Meeks, who was arrested in 2014 for illegal gun possession and has since become a model. Now, all this attention does not mean that nullification will be rendered at this case. There are certain checks and minds. In other words, the attorney's going to have to be very careful about the people who they put on a jury if there's a jury trial. You can weed out some of these people that might bend toward jury nullification. And there are those who also have been speaking out against him, even the coming president. Trump has spoken out against Luigi, promised this past week to vigorously pursue death penalty cases when his Justice Department takes over this coming year. So there is that possibility, and yet there's yet a third defense. That's a possibility as well. And I want to share with you that third possibility. But before I do, I'd like to take a moment and remind us all that there is a real victim in this case. We're hearing a lot about Luigi. We're hearing a lot about the possible defense scenarios. But let's not forget that there was a victim here. There was a real victim, a man who was gunned down in a brazen act of violence, and he leaves a wife and 2 children. And he was laid to rest at a funeral the same very day that Luigi was arrested. His relatives held a private service at the Lutheran Church in Maple Grove, Minnesota. They went on to say that Brian is an incredibly loving husband, son, brother, and friend. That's what his family said in the statement. They went on to say that, more importantly, Brian was a devoted father to 2 sons, and we will miss him for the rest of our lives. And then they showed appreciation for the overwhelming kind words and support that they had received. So what kind of a man? What kind of a man would kill a man who's a father to 2 sons? A loving husband. What kind of a man would do that? Well, that brings us to one of the other choices for this defendant. The answer to what kind of a man? Well, it could be an insane one. Yes, it could be that his attorney would try to mount a not guilty because of insanity defense. You see, with so much physical evidence tying him to the death of Brian Thompson, there are many in the legal community that have suggested that an insanity defense could be the best bet for Luigi, maybe even the only bet of avoiding a life behind bars. Greg German, he's an attorney with over 30 years' experience. He says that he doesn't believe that it'll be a case of jury nullification that we talked about earlier. He believes, and by the way, he teaches at Syracuse University in New York, teaches law. He says, given the weight of the evidence, that insanity is likely the only defense that will work. And remember, I told you earlier about Karen Friedman, Agnifilo. I told you about her past experience. I mentioned that she helped develop Manhattan's first mental health court. She had focused on underlying mental health issues in criminal cases. She knows her stuff. Victoria Townsend, a former chief counsel for the Senate Intelligence Committee, she actually told Newsmax that Karen may have been providing insight in her legal strategy when she said, before she was even representing them, the evidence is going to be so overwhelming that an insanity defense is on the table. There's so much evidence, again, Victoria said, that the only thing left would be an insanity defense. And she went on to say, I'm sure that's what Karen is brushing up on right now. And they're going to hope with all the anti-CEO propaganda out there, they're going to hope that they could get a jury, well, kind of a jury like John Hinckley got, remember? He was the one who shot former President Ronald Reagan. He actually got a verdict of insanity, basically, out of sympathy. So they're hoping for that kind of jury. All right, so there you have it. What is next for Luigi? Well, it could go 3 ways with his defense. They could try to mount some sort of deal by leveraging the fact that this could become a political trial. And it could put all of this on trial instead of Luigi. And maybe the DA doesn't want to go that route. Maybe the DA doesn't want to see this become a political trial. And rather than it becoming a political trial, they may say, hey, let's work out a deal. Let's work out some sort of deal. So that's one possibility. Another possibility, as we mentioned, is jury nullification. It has happened before. O.J. Simpson is an example of that. What we just mentioned just a moment ago, Hinckley, who shot President Reagan, is an example of that, It may be a jury nullification, and then it may become even more like the guy who shot Reagan. It may become an insanity plea. That this guy, he had all these things going for him. There had to be something happening in his mind to make him snap. I mean, he was the valedictorian of his class. He was smart, he was intelligent, he was an engineer. So there's no way a smart, intelligent engineer would do something like this. So something had to happen mentally. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this may be part of the argument that they will bring before the court. So let me ask you now, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in the days ahead? What is next for Luigi? Will the defense mount a jury nullification type of trial? Will they seek for a deal? Will they seek for an insanity plea? I think it's all on the table, don't you? Love to hear from you. Reach out with a shout-out, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. We would love to know what you think about what is next for Luigi Mangione. What do you think is next? Which way will the attorney go in defending him? Till this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. For the life you save, it may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.
Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Charleston. Deftones at Madison Square Garden, Eagles at the Sphere, and Foster the People at the Ryman Auditorium. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.